On the table, among the 8 glasses of water, one is filled with concentrated sulfuric acid. Their task is to randomly pick one glass and drink it. Although they didn't know who the lucky one would be, the massive jackpot of hundreds of millions was enough to make these heavily indebted people scramble for a chance. But soon, Tadayasu halted the competition. He never believed in his luck, so he offered to swap cups with Komaki across the table. Seeing this did not violate the rules, Eiji also wanted to follow suit. Coincidentally, Zenya, sitting in the corner, had the same idea. After they all finished swapping, the host, Tatsunosuke, announced the official start of the game. Leaving any water in the glass would disqualify them from splitting the prize, so everyone downed their drink in one go. Now, they just had to wait 2 minutes for the unlucky one to show signs of agony. It was Eiji who had just imitated the others. Before his death, the unwilling Eiji glared at Zenya across from him. Had Zenya not insisted on swapping back, he wouldn't have met such a tragic end. However, as everyone showed expressions of horror, Tatsunosuke announced the results of the competition.
She died! You are survivors!
Seeing Eiji's miserable demise, everyone burst into ecstatic laughter, because this meant each of them would receive tens of millions of yen. But soon, their laughter ceased. The poison was merely the first level of the game, with each subsequent level promising even more gruesome deaths. And there was no strategy involved, only luck. Since the prize from the first level was enough for Eriko to pay off her debts, with enough left over for her retirement, she decided to quit. Tatsunosuke informed everyone that each level's prize was 100 million yen, and the fewer the survivors, the greater the prize for the remaining players. Moreover, the prize money of those eliminated would be divided among the survivors. As everyone discussed how much they could earn with each passing level, Eriko, who had left, surprisingly returned. She stated that money wasn't important. She was in it for the thrill. It seemed Eriko had now become a true gambler. The game quickly moved on to the second round. Just as everyone was wondering why there were pillows, Tatsunosuke handed each person a package. The moment they opened the packages, everyone was stunned to find a handgun inside. This round was called Russian Roulette. The rules were simple. Each handgun had only one bullet in the chamber. Spin the cylinder, snap it shut, then aim at your temple. All players would pull the trigger simultaneously. Those who died were out. The pillows were to prevent blood splatter from making a mess. As the game was about to start, Komaki suddenly proposed to swap guns. Zenya had just stood up when Tadayasu stopped him, as he also wanted to swap with Komaki. In the end, Komaki chose Tadayasu. Seeing Zenya looking dejected, Aina offered to swap guns with him. After they finished swapping, everyone placed their pillows and aimed their guns at their temples.
運命の第2ラウンドです。3、2、1、シュート!
The first round passed without incident. Since no one was eliminated, the game continued.
3、2、1、シュート!
Another round passed, and still, there was no gunshot. At this point, some were starting to get scared, while others seemed excited. Zenya turned to leave, but Tatsunosuke wouldn't allow it. Once the game started, there was no quitting. Quickly, the third round began.
3、2、1、シュート!
Finally, someone fell. It was Aina, who had swapped guns with Zenya.
She died! You are survivors!
No one at the scene mourned for the dead. After this round, the winners laughed even more wildly, as each of them had gained an additional 17 million yen. But their joy was short-lived, as the even more thrilling third round began. At this point, there were 6 players left, and the number of pools was precisely 6. The rules were simple. Each person picked a pool to jump into, and once the game started, the covers would be closed. If they couldn't hold their breath, they could open the cover to get air. The person who held their breath the longest would receive an additional 10 million yen bonus. But being a life and death game, it couldn't be that simple. It turned out that one of the 6 pool covers would be impossible to open once closed, meaning the person in that pool would drown. It was said that suffocation was the most painful way to die. Upon hearing this, Komaki chickened out immediately, but Eriko seemed excited and was the first to pick a pool. After observing for a while, Eriko decided the pool in the corner was the safest. But strangely, Eriko gave this pool to Komaki, even handing him her good luck charm, while she jumped into another pool at random. At this moment, Zenya announced he would choose last. The cunning Tadayasu tried to be clever again. He asked Tatsunosuke which pool he would choose if it were him. Tatsunosuke replied that whether it was a restroom or a bar, he usually chose the spot closest to the door. Realizing he had been tricked, Tatsunosuke quickly tried to explain that he didn't know the answer either, but Tadayasu immediately jumped into the pool closest to him. Now only 3 people were left. Taichi wanted to be next to Komaki, so he chose pool number 2. Yoko wanted to be next to Taichi, so she picked pool number 3. This left only pool number 4 empty, and Zenya had no choice but to jump in, shivering.
3, 2, 1, 0!
As Tatsunosuke finished the countdown, everyone took a deep breath and submerged, with the covers automatically closing above them. The timer started, and everyone struggled to hold on for the extra 10 million yen. It now came down to who had the strongest willpower. After 50 seconds, Tadayasu was the first to give in, opening the cover to get air. Tadayasu was lucky, as his pool cover could be opened. Next, Eriko couldn't hold on any longer. Soon after, Taichi and Komaki also opened their covers one after the other. Now only Yoko and Zenya were left. One of their pool covers wouldn't open, meaning one unlucky person would drown. At the brink of their limits, both tried to surface at the same time. Yoko was lucky, but Zenya had a tragic fate, drowning under everyone's watchful eyes. Imagine the despair he must have felt.
She died. You are survivors!
Life and death games are cruel. No one feels sympathy for the dead. Instead, they laugh heartily, grateful for their own narrow escape. This was only the 3rd round, and each person's prize had already reached 24 million yen. Yoko received an extra 10 million yen for holding her breath the longest. Once people get used to effortless gains, it's hard to stop. By now, these players were completely crazed, unconcerned about the dangers of the game. Soon, the tense and thrilling 4th round began. Unexpectedly, the organizers invited a new member. This Tomoya was no ordinary player. He had won 3 times before. Surviving this many times meant he either had incredible luck or extraordinary skills. Realizing this, all the players opposed Tomoya, joining midway.
おいおい、冗談じゃねえぞ。俺たちは命がけでここまでやってきたんだ。それを途中で参加するなんて。
Tomoya offered to pay 100 million yen as his entry fee. This doubled the prize for the next game. Seeing the money, everyone dropped their objections. Soon, the game officially began. In the middle of the room were 6 chairs, one of which was electrified. Pressing the switch would send a 10,000-volt shock, instantly killing the person sitting there. When it came time to choose chairs, the cunning Tadayasu tried to be clever again by having the newcomer Tomoya go first. Tomoya said that as the new guy, the others should pick first. Unexpectedly, the veteran players united against him, insisting that Tomoya go first. Their reason was simple. Tomoya might have played this game before, and they wanted to see which chair he picked. Hearing this, Tomoya didn't hesitate and randomly chose a chair to sit in. As soon as Tomoya sat down, the others played rock, paper, scissors, with the winner swapping seats with him. Tomoya smiled helplessly and generously gave up his seat. Tomoya believed this game was purely about luck, so clever tricks wouldn't help, and he randomly picked another chair. After everyone chose their seats, Tatsunosuke instructed them to take off their shoes and socks, standing barefoot on metal plates. Then, the game countdown began.
3, 2, 1, switch on! Game over! He died. You are survivors.
This was a life and death game involving 5 types of mushrooms, one of which was deadly poisonous, guaranteed to cause a painful death if consumed. The rules were that the 5 players each chose a type of mushroom one at a time. However, the mushrooms were not for themselves but for others. The chosen recipient could not refuse and had to eat it all. To ensure fairness, they used a deck of cards to decide the order of selecting mushrooms. The players arranged themselves from highest to lowest card value. Tadayasu was lucky, drawing the King of Hearts, the highest card. Next was Taichi, who drew a 7. The unluckiest was Eriko, who picked a 2. Komaki quickly comforted her, saying, "At least it's not a 1. Just as she finished consoling Eriko, Komaki lifted her card and saw that it was a small one. Eriko laughed out loud in relief. Now it was Yoko's turn. Confidently, she revealed her card, the King of Spades. Although Tadayasu also had a king, Yoko's spade trumped his heart, giving her the first choice. She scrutinized the hot pot for a long time before selecting the mushroom that looked the most poisonous. After all, only by poisoning others could she ensure her own safety. Yoko despised Tadayasu the most, so she placed the mushrooms in front of him. Next was Tadayasu's turn. He picked the most vibrant colored mushroom. Everyone thought he would give it to Yoko, but unexpectedly, he placed it in front of Taichi. Taichi was the third to choose. Unlike the previous two, he didn't want anyone to die because of him, so he picked the least toxic-looking mushroom and served it to Yoko. Now things got interesting. As only Komaki and Eriko were left, they could only choose for each other. Unexpectedly, Eriko brazenly asked Komaki if he knew which mushroom was poisonous. Komaki was stunned on the spot. Eriko hurriedly explained that after all this time she had treated Komaki as her own sister. She, a gambler, was not afraid to die, but Komaki had a bright future ahead, so she wanted Komaki to survive. Then Eriko asked Komaki,
高校の先生から毒キノコのことを教わったんでしょちゃんと思い出してあなたは何としても生き残って
Komaki was moved to tears on the spot. After carefully observing, Komaki realized the yellow mushroom on the right was poisonous. Just as Komaki had finished telling Eriko, before she could dry her tears, the bowl of poisonous mushrooms was served by Eriko in front of Komaki's face. Poor Komaki realized she had been tricked.
あんと召し上がれエリコさん人生は生存競争だ誰一人信用してたら生きていけないよ
Komaki was furious, but it was too late to say anything. With Tatsunosuke's command, the players began eating the mushrooms. Whether they wanted to or not, whether they liked it or not, they had to eat it all. Then began the long waiting period to see who would die. Everyone felt sorry for Komaki. Yoko even painted Komaki's nails red. Komaki was pleased, saying it wasn't so bad to die looking beautiful. But then, a dramatic twist occurred.
そこなんですよね。なぜま
Eriko suddenly started having difficulty breathing and collapsed in agony. Eriko thought she had tricked Komaki, but in the end she realized that the real fool was herself.
ごめんね
In the end, Eriko paid dearly for her cunning.
She died! You are survivors!
Seeing Eriko die in despair, Komaki burst into laughter. Komaki's laughter sent chills down everyone's spine. They hadn't expected a 16-year-old girl to be so devious. Tadayasu was so furious he nearly punched Komaki, but this was a game of luck, and cunning alone wouldn't get one far. Soon, the game moved to the 6th round. This round was the most terrifying of all. Above 4 windows, a guillotine was installed on one. The loser would be beheaded on the spot. As the game was about to begin, Taichi wet his pants in fear. He said it was too scary to wait for death, so could he be prepared for it first? Tatsunosuke was very understanding. To calm Taichi down, he thoughtfully played music for the group. At Tatsunosuke's request, the 4 players put their heads back out the windows. Though each one was trembling with fear, the thought of the massive prize made them decide to take the risk.
第6ゲームギロチン3 1 0
Maybe it was just too terrifying, but when the game ended, none of the 4 players moved. After a long time, Taichi collapsed to the ground. Next was Yoko. She took 2 steps back before falling, likely unable to control her legs. The most impressive was Uchiyama. Having been a cop, he stood tall even after such an ordeal. Uchiyama excitedly declared that this was the thrill he sought, followed by a burst of laughter. Everyone then looked at Komaki. Since the other 3 were safe, the unlucky one had to be Komaki. As Komaki had predicted, she died beautifully with her painted nails.
She died! You are survivors!
The prize for this round was 70 million yen per person. With her previous winnings, Yoko had amassed over 200 million yen. This was enough for Yoko to pay off all her debts and still have tens of millions left for retirement. Tatsunosuke suggested Yoko take the money and start a new life. But to everyone's surprise, she refused. Indeed, this is the gambler's mindset. They want to recover losses when they lose and keep winning when they win. Taichi was the same as Yoko. Although his prize money far exceeded his debts, he refused to leave and wanted to continue playing. The most hypocritical one had to be Uchiyama. Despite his massive debts, he claimed money wasn't an issue and said he just enjoyed the thrill. Let me explain. Just before the 6th round began, Tadayasu suddenly disappeared. According to the game rules, the 6th round required 4 participants, so the organizers brought in Uchiyama. Uchiyama, drowning in debt and unable to repay it, was living a very repressed life. Now that he had a chance to turn things around, he was eager to take the risk. At this point, Uchiyama had earned 70 million yen. If he managed to survive the next round, his prize money would be enough to clear all his debts and still have 100 million left for retirement. As for why Tadayasu disappeared, I'll explain later. The even more thrilling 7th round began. The crossbow on the table was powerful enough to easily pierce a person's chest. The game rules were simple. The 3 players each chose a chair and fastened their seatbelts. Tatsunosuke would then manually spin the crossbow. If the crossbow didn't hit anyone, the game would restart. This continued until someone was pierced. Now, the question arose. If the eliminated player wasn't hit in a vital spot, should they be left to die in pain or be finished off? Tatsunosuke assured them not to worry, as the arrow's trajectory was preset to directly aim at the player's heart. Next came the seat selection. Taichi, quick on his feet, immediately sat in the main seat and fastened his seatbelt, signaling that no one could take his spot. Uchiyama hesitated. He initially chose the seat facing the crossbow, but then reconsidered and switched to the seat with his back to it. Yoko, confident as ever, sat down next to Taichi without a second thought. Everyone had chosen their seats by this time. Just as the game was about to start, Uchiyama suddenly called a timeout because he thought the seat next to him was better. After everyone settled down again, Tatsunosuke stepped forward to activate the mechanism. Then he announced the official start of the game.
3, 2, 1, spin!
It would be a lie to say they weren't scared. Everyone's hearts were in their throats, fearing they might be the unlucky one. It was fine when the wheel was spinning fast at the beginning, but as it slowed down, the players grew more terrified. Even Tatsunosuke was scared enough to raise his shield. At that moment, no one expected the crossbow to be aimed at the seat where Uchiyama had first sat. Luckily, he had changed seats, or Uchiyama would have been dead. Since the crossbow missed in the first round, the game had to continue. Just as the second round was about to begin, Uchiyama started to act up again. He decided to move to the seat that had just been shot by the crossbow, because there was no way the same position would be shot twice. The game quickly resumed. At this point, both Taichi and Yoko were trembling with fear, but Uchiyama wore a smug look, as if victory was already his. But would a position that had been hit by a crossbow really not be shot again?
He died. You are a survivor.
After the game ended, Taichi found Yoko. He said that they had won enough money and there was no need to keep playing, so he planned to take the prize money and quit. This way, neither of them would die. Although Yoko was greedy, she knew Taichi was right. But at this moment, Tatsunosuke brought some devastating news. Those who made it to the finals could not quit. If anyone forfeited, both players' prize money would be confiscated entirely. Yoko was furious when she heard this. They had been told they could leave with their winnings at any time, and now they were being denied. This was cheating. Tatsunosuke disliked her with just one sentence. That is, the final interpretation, right belongs to the shop. Now there are only 2 ways out for them. The first is to leave without the money, but the huge debt they are carrying will make their lives worse than death. The second was to continue playing the game. Though only one of them would survive, the winner would receive 780 million yen and never have to worry about money again. After weighing the pros and cons, Yoko decisively chose the latter. But if Taichi refused, Yoko still wouldn't get a penny. To persuade Taichi to participate, Yoko called him to her room that night. The next day, they arrived at the game site as scheduled. The ropes for the weight-bearing balls were hidden inside the 8 ropes. The rules of the game were simple. The 2 players took turns cutting the ropes until the one supporting the iron ball was cut, causing someone to fall from the high building. At first glance, it seemed like you could figure out which rope was holding the iron ball, but as a game of luck and life or death, it couldn't be that simple. The order of the 8 ropes was shuffled underground. Even Tatsunosuke couldn't tell which was which, so the players could only rely on their instincts to cut the ropes. Cutting someone else's load-bearing rope is great, but if you cut your own, you're dead on the spot. To be fair, they decided who would cut first with a game of rock, paper, scissors. Yoko had good luck, but winning rock, paper, scissors didn't mean winning the game. Yoko hesitated for a long time with the scissors in hand before finally choosing a rope at random.
Capo!
Luckily, she didn't cut the safety rope, and they both sighed in relief. Next, it was Taichi's turn. It was unclear whether to be happy or sad. Although they were both safe for now, it meant the game had to continue. With more ropes being cut, one of them would eventually die. They thought it would be uneventful this time, but unexpectedly. At the crucial moment, Taichi quickly grabbed Yoko. After spending so much time together, they had developed feelings for each other. If it weren't for the organizers preventing them from quitting, they would have already started a happy life together. At that moment, Yoko suddenly revealed her secret.
Otou-san!
It turned out Tatsunosuke was her father, but even so, it didn't change her fate of being eliminated. In the end, Taichi couldn't withstand the 800-ton iron ball. Taichi blamed Tatsunosuke for not preventing his daughter from participating in the game, despite their father-daughter relationship, but Tatsunosuke said it was their own choice. As a staff member, he was forbidden to discuss personal matters during the game. He then choked up as he announced the game's results.
C-Day. You are a survivor.
As the final winner, Taichi received a total prize of 780 million yen. Now a new problem arose. How would Taichi take away so much cash? If he used suitcases, he would need at least 8. And how could Taichi carry so many by himself? If he mailed it, how could he be sure it would be safe? Given the situation, Tatsunosuke suggested consulting with the chairman to see if they could issue a check instead. Hearing this, Taichi gave a strange smile. The mastermind behind the scenes was finally about to emerge. But to Taichi's shock, the boss turned out to be his old acquaintance Zenya. This didn't make sense. Didn't Zenya drown in the 3rd round? How did he suddenly become the chairman? It turned out Zenya hadn't lied to them. He really was a doctor before, almost committing suicide because he couldn't repay his debts. But just as Zenya was about to jump off the high building, he had a revelation. If he wasn't afraid of dying, why should he fear living? Since then, he's been a lucky man, making tens of billions of yen in just a few years. With money, Zenya began researching human luck, spending his entire fortune to have wave after wave of people come and test it. Unexpectedly, he actually found the secret. To verify his research results, he even took the risk of participating in the games himself. The poisoned wine in the 1st round, the Russian roulette in the 2nd round, were all real. Since the computer had already analyzed who would die, he wasn't worried. But just before the 3rd round started, the computer showed his luck was at its lowest point. Sure enough, his good luck had run out. Knowing in advance that he would die, Zenya had an oxygen tube hidden in the water tank, which saved his life. He told Taichi all this because he wanted to conduct one last experiment, pitting Taichi against Tatsunosuke. Tatsunosuke was also a lucky person. He was the champion of the last death game. To entice them to continue playing, Zenya offered 10 billion yen. Hearing this, Tatsunosuke was tempted because his wife had committed suicide due to debt. So after winning the championship, he used the prize money to open a charity dedicated to helping those with suicidal tendencies. Since it was a non-profit organization, the money ran out quickly. Then, if he can get this 10 billion yen, he can save more people. It's also a compensation for his wife. The computer had already analyzed the outcome of the battle between Tatsunosuke and Taichi, but it needed further validation. Only by making bold hypotheses and carefully verifying them could they uncover the truth about luck. After much persuasion from Zenya, Taichi finally agreed. Was the computer's analysis really accurate? Zenya injected both of them with 2 lethal doses of poison, then made them play rock, paper, scissors, where each win earned an antidote. But it took at least 3 bottles of antidote to fully detoxify, or the player would still die. With only 5 bottles on the plate, one of them had to die today. After injecting the poison, Zenya took out 2 envelopes from his pocket. The white envelope contained a bank check, on which he wrote 10 billion yen in front of them. The black envelope contained the name of the person the computer predicted would lose. The game quickly began. Seeing the 2 tied, Zenya laughed heartily. This was a showdown between champions. Tatsunosuke won the 1st round, and Zenya immediately gave him a bottle of antidote. Seeing there were only 4 bottles left, the disadvantaged Taichi became furious. He questioned why Zenya didn't just reveal the answer if he already knew it. Zenya explained that revealing it might affect the test results. For example, in the game, Tadayasu was supposed to die from the crossbow in the 7th round according to the computer, but because Tadayasu with his dirty hands colluded with Kamaki to steal money, he was ultimately killed by Kamaki. This led to a change in participants, bringing in Uchiyama. This way, the computer's initial results couldn't be perfectly verified. If the answer was announced now, there was no guarantee that the loser would not do something out of the ordinary, which was the last thing he wanted to see. The game quickly moved into the 2nd round. This time, Taichi won. They were tied again, but Tatsunosuke won the 3rd round. with only 2 antidote bottles left. If Tatsunosuke won one more time, the game would be over. But it seemed the game didn't want to end so quickly. Taichi won the 4th round, tying them again. So the 5th round became their life or death match. At this point, Taichi suddenly said he wanted to eat some omelet rice. Xenia understood perfectly because when he was about to drown in the 3rd round, he was thinking about eating some natto. Hearing natto, Taichi suddenly remembered that he had been eating natto and instant noodles every day lately. Was there a reason behind this? Tatsunosuke explained that the food was specially arranged by Xenia. Natto, rich in vitamin K and probiotics, helps maintain biological rhythms. And instant noodles were even more potent, stimulating the sympathetic nervous system to promote adrenaline secretion. This was why none of the players quit after winning money. With everything explained, the ultimate showdown of the 5th round began. After so many ties, it seemed both of their fates were strong. In the end, Taichi won. Xenia carefully opened the envelope, and Tatsunosuke's name was written inside. It appeared the computer's analysis was correct, and Xenia had truly uncovered the secret of luck. But Taichi had no interest in any of this. He took the check and walked away. At that moment, Xenia suddenly noticed his luck skyrocketing, completely surpassing Taichi's. Seeing this, he immediately called Taichi back, proposing one more game. If he won, he would reclaim the prize money. Xenia thought it was a sure win, but unexpectedly, he lost. This meant all his research findings would be overturned. Xenia hurried back to check the data, only to find his luck plummeting rapidly, causing him to shake uncontrollably. It turned out all this so-called luck research was nothing but a joke, and after winning 10 billion yen, Taichi, having gone through so many life-and-death situations, also became somewhat mentally unstable. This show vividly demonstrated the greed of gamblers. Winning once made them want to win again, not realizing they could lose their lives in the end. Therefore, we must recognize the dangers and stay away from gambling.